Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I'm back this week with my plans and pans. Well, today is April 22nd, and it is Earth Day. Happy Earth Day to everyone. I got an early start on Earth Day. I joined the mayor of Evanston, Mayor Biss, and some members of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District and a bunch of wonderful volunteers who were cutting down invasive species and planting really good ones in their place. There are all kinds of ways to help our planet, to help your planet and your community, and I hope you'll get involved. You know, I remember the first Earth Day. It was in 1970, and there was no Environmental Protection Agency. There was no Clean Water Act. There was no Clean Air Act at the time. And yes, we've made progress when it comes to creating those agencies and passing those laws, but we certainly do have a long way to go. The science is absolutely clear that if we don't act with haste, that we are going to see the worst effects of the changing climate. In fact, aren't we seeing them already? I have been trying to organize around the issue of climate change, certainly as long as I've been in the Congress, which is now over 2 decades, and I serve on the subcommittee on environment and climate change right now. Along with my colleague from California, Nanette Berrigan, I have reintroduced now the Future Generation Protection Act. It's really a very bold bill. And we have a number of co-sponsors. We could use more for our HR 6169, if you could help us out. And this legislation would put an end to hydraulic fracturing, digging deep into the earth for more oil, which can cause even earthquakes and methane releases, etc. And there would be no more exportation of oil and gas from the United States, and energy producers and deliverers would not get support if they were using fossil fuels. So it would go a long way to reducing the kind of carbon emissions that we are suffering right now. The President of the United States has promised by the year 2050 that the United States would be at zero emissions, and to take the steps on the way to get there, and that we would be at 50% carbon emissions, 50% of what we have now, by 2030, which, let's remember, is just around the corner. So that means that we're going to have to continue to take action, and the president is doing everything he can to create more clean jobs and to reduce emissions, because we are the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases on the planet. China is number 1. I would say there's 2 really good reasons why we should free ourselves from fossil fuels. One is because we do not want to be dependent on dictators like Putin, who is the 3rd largest producer of gas and oil in the world. And so people are dependent on him. Looking at Iran as a producer of oil, do we want to have to deal with those dictators? And number 2, we are seeing right now that there is the exploitation by the oil companies, gouging by the oil companies, who have made a decision that rather than release more oil right now, oil and gas, the problem at the pump, because they decided instead to raise their profits, to increase their shareholder dividends, and to do stock buybacks. The 6 oil companies that were at our hearing together had $72 billion in profits last year, And so we need to free ourselves. This is the time, not just in order to make sure that we stop global warming, but because we stop the nooses that are around our neck right now. I also want to tell you about my visits to schools. This relates to global warming because one of the students at the high school, I went to both New Trier and to Niles North this week and talked to wonderful classrooms of students. And one said to me, "What do you think the best way to convince someone that it is important to get involved in the issues of cleaner planet?" And I said, get personal. I don't think the right answer is to say people need to get involved in saving our planet. No. Ask them, in your community, how are the beaches? We treasure our lakefront. I know in the 9th Congressional District that we have actually lost several beaches because of the rise in the lake water. And so, losing that treasure is real important to a lot of people who live in our communities. The other thing is that the water is not only going across Lakeshore Drive, but it is going into basements right now. People are worried about their infrastructure in their homes and high rises. We know that people are seeing all over the country forest fires, water shortages, asthma, which can be caused by pollution. We know that the coral reefs are dying and won't be there anymore. So if you care about wildlife, if you care about agriculture, if you care about gardening, then you ought to pay attention. And I think that is a better way to reach people where they're at. We talk to young people. I say, well, you look really fit. Do you like to run and exercise outside? What about those days when the air quality recommends that you don't go outside? And what about the heat? Did you know that more Americans die of boiling heat in the summer than any other weather event that there is? The president went to the Pacific Northwest this week because he wanted to talk to them about what we're doing in order to reduce the cost of heating and cooling. There is more money going into the LIHEAP program, the Low Income Housing Assistance Program, and the state of Illinois is going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars because it's going to be going to every state to help people with cooling. And he wanted to go to the Pacific Northwest because during last summer, they had record high heats, unheard of heats, of 110 degrees, and a couple places even more. And so we know that so many people are having trouble paying for their heating, but we're coming into a warm season now, hopefully, and we want to make sure that there are programs, and so watch for it because Illinois will get a good portion of money here to help out. I wanted to tell you about our community project funding. I mentioned last week that I went to a shelter, a housing for people who have experienced homelessness, and was able to give them a good deal of money to create more dignified housing and to revamp a lot of their facilities. Well, this week I went to visit with Mayor Haynes at Arlington Heights, and they have had a real problem with flooding in their neighborhoods. also can be caused by global warming, because we've had, sometimes they talk about 50-year floods or 100-year floods, and guess what? They've been happening like every other year or even every year. And so communities in Arlington Heights have some chronic flooding, and we will be able to give them $600,000 to be able to have some storm detention places for them to be able to get some of the storm water out of those communities. And it's really a pleasure to be able to bring about $3.4 million to 10 different projects around the district. And I was able to this week, go to Arlington Heights. I wanted to update you a little bit on Ukraine. The president just announced another about $800 million in a package of help that is going to go to Ukraine. Heavy artillery, dozens of howitzers, more rounds of ammunition, more drones that we will provide. And this is on top of last week, $800 million going to Ukraine to help with security with security issues, and not only security issues, but the president announced $1 billion for humanitarian assistance. And any of you who are watching TV certainly know how absolutely important this is. But also, when it comes to sanctions, the United States has also added sanctions to about another 600 individuals who have been involved in these kinds of human rights violations that you are seeing. And of course, we are developing through our Justice Department and the intelligence agencies to gather the information in preparation of the kind of prosecutions that inevitably will happen because of the war crimes that we are seeing. In the meantime, I don't want to take the word diplomacy off the table either. We are hoping, and I know President Zelensky is hoping too, that there might be an off-ramp for this terrible war, and that some way that Putin will agree to some kind of a way to have a ceasefire and hopefully to permanently stop this horrific war. Just incredible to watch and hard to believe that we are talking about 2022. Student loan debt, as you know, as many of you know, is a serious burden on individuals and families for years and years, even after the college experience is over. And the White House and the Secretary of Education, Secretary Cardona, announced a program that they say will provide some relief to about 3.6 million Americans. Put it the way they put it, that they will be closer to debt forgiveness, and that 40,000 individuals actually will get debt relief because there's a revision of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. So if you are one of those people you think, call our office to see if we can help you find out if you are actually eligible for that debt relief. On the healthcare front, I think I have for you some exciting news. At least I'm very enthusiastic about it. In the American Rescue Plan, there was $226 million that will go toward launching the Community Health Worker Training Program. I am so much in favor of being able to have people out in the community that are going to identify health issues and help people to find the kind of health care that they need, people who even go door to door in communities where people need the help the most. It will add about 13,000 more community health workers. And if you are interested in applying for such a job, be sure to go to my newsletter or check out my social media. There will be a link so that you could get more information about that. So you've always thought about being more involved in bettering healthcare that's available? Check this out. And finally, with the coronavirus, the CDC reported that the virus was the third largest cause of death in the United States after heart disease and cancer. Things seem to have gotten better, although in many states around the country, including Illinois, the cases are up. We aren't seeing as many deaths, fortunately, as we used to, and hospitalizations, but still good to be careful. I really think the big news, though, on coronavirus has been that there was a judge in Florida, a federal judge, who made this effort to just throw out the idea of a mask mandate on mass transportation and all forms of mass transportation. And the CDC took a close look at that and felt that it was really not safe to do that. And so the Justice Department has now launched an appeal. We will see what is eventually going to happen. You should know that this judge, who was about 8 years out of law school and deemed unqualified by the Bar Association, made this decision that could have the kind of national impact that we really don't want. So we'll see what the outcome is. I am very much hoping that when I fly to Washington, D.C., that not only will I for sure be wearing a mask, but I would certainly like to know that all the passengers are, because who knows who has been vaccinated, who hasn't, who might be ill at the very moment. And so, we should take all the precautions still that we can, no matter what the outcome is. So thanks so much for listening this week, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.